Greetings to you. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to another episode of the Why Lead Others podcast. I am your host, Ben Owden. And this is a special one because this is our first ever video podcast on this platform. And today we'll be talking about something I have been thinking about a lot, something that I have been battling and continue to battle. This is something that separates the greats from the mediocres, the proven and tested achievers from the one-hit wonders, those we adore in this world from those we wonder what happened. This is something the likes of Drake, Apple, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, the T.D Jakes of the world, people who've been at the top for the longest period of time. Today we'll be talking about consistency. And to have this conversation, I am joined by one of the most consistent people I know. He's a friend to the pod. This is not the first time he's with us. He was with us before talking about personal financial management. And today he's here with us to have a conversation about consistency. Mr. Sam Ndandala, karibu brother.
Asante sana. Ben, it's great to have this conversation with you. I should say that it's great stuff that you're doing with Y-Lead. Very consistent with the podcast. Congratulations on the first season. And I think it's a niche that you have tapped into, and I'm excited to see what happens with it because it's really making an impact.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So at what point in your journey, building wealth, growing your career, trying to stay healthy and fit, at what point did your light bulb go off and said, the key has to be consistency? At what point did you realize that the key has to be consistency?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think there's a scary. Maybe we can start biblically. There's a scary thing that Jesus says, and it makes me think all the time. Jesus, I think in Mark, he says. Mark 25, it says, walio nacho wanaongezewa na wasio nacho hata kile kidogo walichokuwa nacho wanapokonywa.
Yeah.
It's scary because I think it's such an unfair statement to say, and this is Christ saying. But I think what Jesus was explaining was this idea of compounding. This idea that left to their own devices, good things can get better and worse things get worse, and therefore it is the most important principle. I think the idea that you can compound your gains, marginal gains, as you move across time and literally astound yourself in a couple of years or a couple of decades. So for me, it has always been a pillar. I'm not as consistent in everything, but the few things that I care about, I try to be very consistent, and the results do show. Yeah.
And so what do you think? Because I think sometimes we tend to be super excited when somebody, things like the New Year's resolution. This year I'm going to be more fit. I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to save my money. I will, take up that new skill. And then usually by the end of the first quarter, that fire has died off. And beyond that, I think every time people have this awakening, this light bulb moment where you're like, I think I need to be doing this with my life. You start off with excitement, and after a while, people stop. And I have done that for a long period of my life, where I start off and then I just somewhere along the line, I stop. And so what do you think, what happens? What kills that fire? Where the excitement to begin and to start is always greater, but it's not long lasting. Yeah. After a while, it goes off.
Yeah. I think it's a good metaphor you use, fire, because there's a difference between a spark and fire. And it's good to have a spark, some level of inspiration or motivation, but a spark will not cook anything. You need a fire, and fires left to themselves die out. You need to keep putting the wood. You need to keep putting the gas. And I think we sometimes go at it the wrong way, in my view. because either we aim way, way too high, or our ambitions, our goals have to do with the outcome. Whilst it's easier to have ambitions and goals that have to do with the process or the type of person you're becoming. Because if you think about it, let's say you have a health issue and you want to get your health in order. You can have a goal of saying, look, I want to lose 20 kgs. Your dopamine will not hit until you hit 20 kgs that you've lost. But that's one way of, planning or having a goal. The other way is saying, I want to be the kind of person who lives a healthy life. That means every day you get your small wins. Every day you get your dopamine, right? And your brain is now wired slowly and slowly to be a person who ultimately will lose those 20 kgs. So it's really rethinking about the kind of goals and ambitions we set for ourselves, and the kinds of goals and ambitions that are consistent and last over time have to do with character and the kind of person you are and process, as opposed to the outcome. Because you might not even get to the outcome, but the process and who you become along the way is more important. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because, even the whole idea of SMART goals, right? You have to be specific and they have to be measurable, the M, measurable. And so in an attempt to set measurable goals, you say, I want to lose 20 kgs by March. But like you're saying, you're postponing the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Meaning, that rush and that excitement, which essentially, breeds motivation, is far off.
Yeah.
Whereas if you make it a daily thing, but I think, which is something that I also struggled with, where this idea where initially the goal was specific and measurable. And I would always stop somewhere along the way. And so I tried two approaches. One is to set very small goals that they're specific and measurable, but they're so small that even if I'm lazy, I can attain them. And then slowly scale them up, right? And so that I tried that approach and that worked. But I think another approach, but that doesn't work with every single thing in my life. It works in some things. Another approach that I actually tried out was doing, so I'm not specific in terms of when exactly I don't have targets. The goal is to just do. So if it's running, the goal is to leave my house and run. It doesn't really matter how long. And in fact, these days, I don't even track how many kilometers I've gone because, again, the goal is to have transitioned to a point where now I just want to do things. Now I just want to write. Now I just want to, of course, in other aspects, I'm specific, but I think maybe, could it be that there isn't like a one-size-fits-all approach where, you have this method or framework that you use in your finances, in your health, in your relationships, in your career, in everything you do. But maybe it's really finding different frameworks that work in those different specific things.
And at different stages of your life as well, So I think I don't know if it's Carl Jung or I think it's Carl Jung who said the reason the modern world doesn't see God is because they don't look low enough. And I think Jordan Peterson talks about it a lot. And that's a very profound thing to say, because you want to set a goal that transforms who you are, not gives you something, right? So if you're starting, let's say you're really bad with money, for example. I talk a lot about financial literacy and independence. You want to. So there are two things. One is you yourself are not convinced that you can manage money well. You yourself, you don't trust yourself. And then obviously the second thing is you don't manage your money well. Now, if you're trying to create a consistent framework for you to start getting better, what you need to be able to do is give yourself enough wins that tries to convince you that you're a person who manages money well at the beginning. And then afterwards, you're flexible. It's something you do. Same thing with writing. If you write every day, soon you start believing that you're a person who writes every day. So if you miss a day, you're still a writer. So it's a question of identity. And once you have your identity locked in, then you can move around with the goals. But this is where consistency comes in. Consistency is literally causing some small micro evolution. I think another principle that is quite important for people to appreciate is the principle of evolution. And I think it's an underspoken principle. We are constantly evolving. Everything you do is moving your identity a little bit. So you need to start having those micro actions that tries to change who you think you are. Because once you start believing it yourself, then you're starting to compound. You become that kind of person. But if you aim so high, you can't run a marathon. You can't say, look, I've never run, in my life, and I want to run a marathon.
Yeah.
You'll not run the next day, and you'll hate it. But if you just put on your shoes and go for a 5-minute walk and be like, yeah, that's day done. I have my shoes on. I've had a walk. I'm going to start running. And then in 2 months, you're running 2Ks. And in 5 months, you're running 10Ks. And, next year, maybe you're running a marathon. I think that's how it works.
I like that. And I think, what you said there at the end, this idea that if the goal is too high, because I think we were talking about this before, where to be consistent, there has to be a judge, whether that judge is the ideal place you want to get to. And sometimes the judge is the goal you've set.
Yeah.
And I think if the goal is too big, then it's this big, giant judge who's looking down on you. And that can be intimidating and it can demoralize you, and then you stop. Whereas if the judge is close enough, it's a lot easier to deal with the judge, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the whole idea. Even when people think of God, I think even a lot of people reject the, Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic God, basically all the Abrahamic religion, the God that's spoken about.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a problem with that God because he's too big.
Yeah.
It's, he's going to judge everything, my thoughts, every single aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And people find it okay to subscribe to an idea of a God that's close by, whether it's Mother Earth or because it's not too intimidating, right? So I think it's this idea where if it's too great, then the judgment is demoralizing. And so if you miss a day, then you start questioning your identity. Am I even the person who can actually live up to this standard that you yourself have set for yourself, which is very strange. So I definitely agree on the identity aspect of it, where you have the goals at the beginning, they have to be small enough for you to achieve them, so you can make yourself believe that you are the type of person who can get to that point.
And it is counterintuitive because I think, our generation has been fed a very steady dose of dream big, have massive goals. If your goals don't scare you, you're not dreaming high enough.
Hairy, audacious
big,
goals.
hairy, audacious goals. I want to be a billionaire tomorrow. What am I going to do? And I think there's a fallacy in that, because it downplays the kind of work required to achieve those big, hairy, audacious goals, and two, it also underplays or underestimates the time required to achieve those goals. Sometimes we have this illusion that we can achieve so much in so little time, but we also underestimate how much we can achieve in a decade, for example. So it's strange, but this is where consistency and compounding comes in. In the beginning, by its very nature, you're not seeing much results. You're not seeing anything moving. If your goal is financial, if your goal is even in relationships, you're not seeing things progress as geometrically as you want them to be. But if you're consistent for a couple of months, for a couple of years, then you start to see the results, and then it becomes an overnight success. You know, so I think this idea of dreaming small probably should make a comeback. Yeah.
And so going back to the whole aspect of the judge, right? Having this ideal state that you want to get to in the different aspect of your life where you're trying to grow into and become. And I think there was one day, I think there was someone on Twitter who was seeking motivation to run or to do something, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I said, listen to David Gawkins.
Yeah.
And you commented saying yes, especially in the morning.
That's your guy.
Yeah. And so how important is judgment when it comes to trying to be consistent?
Yeah.
How important is the aspect of judgment where you have this level you try to get to, and so that state, that ideal state, becomes the judge that's always reminding you how you are doing, right? Whether it's good or bad. And I think at the same time, what relationship do we need to develop with this concept of judgment? Because I think as soon as you say judgment, people push back because judgment is always seen as something negative.
Yeah.
When you think of judgment, you think of the law and courts, and no one wants to be in that situation.
Yeah.
When you think of basically judgment has negative associations. But I think, at least in my opinion, I believe that, and this is an idea that I've heard Jordan Peterson as well push, this whole aspect of, having a judge essentially push you and pull you to that state that you want to get to. So how important is judgment, and what relationship do we need to develop with this whole idea of judgment?
Yeah. So I think that is why we need ideals, right? In a way, it's an ever receding target because it's so perfect that you're not gonna ever reach it, right? And I'm gonna talk about judgment and grace a little bit because I think it's also important. But everyone needs a judge, and a judge is not somewhere sitting. It's your you can put a panel of judges for yourself. Think about the greatest people you admire. Take 4 of them and say, these are the people I care about. These are the opinions of the people I care about. And by the way, a friend of mine gave me a book by Brené Brown, Daring Greatly, and she suggests that you have a list of 4 people in your wallet or in your pocket, and when you have a decision to make, just look at those individuals and say, okay, I care about these guys. I don't care about the rest. What would these guys think? Let's say, for argument's sake, you have Mandela, Cristiano Ronaldo, Jesus, and Moses. They're your panel for a range of reasons. You pick any. You can pick Rihanna or Beyonce. It doesn't matter, right?
And you can have different panels for different things.
Exactly. Yeah. And then your panel is, okay, my ideal is a combination of these people. I don't care about the rest of the world. What would they think about this particular decision that I'm making? Or what would they think about this particular habit that I have? And that gives you a sounding board to direct you, right? But it's also important to realize that an ideal, by definition, is not attainable. At least it's not attainable in our lifetimes because it's an ever-receding target. And therefore, you need a bit of grace with yourself.
Because you will fall short.
You will fall short. And this is maybe the central doctrine of Christianity, right? Like, there is an ideal. You will always fall short. And you're always trying to get to that ideal. And you should not be discouraged by your faults because, by definition, nobody has ever achieved them. Now, I think that balance between trying to get yourself to better yourself and then also realizing that you're not sufficient in your composition is very important. And it is what actually leads to being consistently trying to improve yourself. Yeah.
And how does that look like in your life? Because I think in my life, so for example, we spoke a bit about this, before we started filming, where for me, when it comes to fitness, so I have two guys who I guess you could say this is the panel, my panel. One of them is David Goggins. So he is the guy that I use when it comes to actual fitness and working out. And I forgot the name of the other guy, but with him it's more the diet. So he talks about this concept of reaching a state of metabolic flexibility, where your body is wired to work with whatever food you give it. So if you eat one meal a day, you don't feel hungry the rest of the hours because your body is wired and it's trained to work with what's available. If you go to the jungle and you can only eat fruits, you're fine because it's wired that way, right? But there's a process you have to go through to build your metabolism to be that flexible.
Yeah.
And so he's the ideal where and I don't know how I'm going to reach it. And maybe it's the whole aspect, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I will not reach it.
Maybe you won't, yeah.
But because to get to that point, you have to be very extreme. Like food has to be purely for utility.
Yeah.
It's not a source of
fuel.
pleasure. Yeah, it's purely fuel, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to working out, it's David Goggins. And there are times, and I remember I've even gotten into arguments with my wife because it's at night and she's like, what, do you have to do this? And in my mind, I'm like, David Goggins would do this. So I go out and I do it. There are times when I'm running and I can feel pain on one of my knees. And I want to stop. And I'm like, and I remember, Goggins wouldn't stop. He would fall, he would drop dead before he stops, right? And so I have to go on. And so for me, at least in that respect, and of course that goes into every aspect, even with my finances, there's an ideal. There are people that I'm looking towards, people making financial decisions. And I think, and even with finances, a good example for me, it's maybe this is not necessarily a person, but I know Morgan Housel, he has this idea, right, of, and I don't know if it's his idea or he got it from somewhere else, where he says, save like a pessimist and invest like an optimist. So sometimes for me in other areas, it's not necessarily a person, but it's like an idea or a philosophy.
It's a concept,
Yeah, a concept. But at the same time, a challenge that I see when it comes to, again, having these judges and whatever, it's there has to be, cognitive consistency, or at least logical consistency. Because if let's say David Goggins says, he's an extremist, you just go for a run, don't listen to your body in that sense. Yet on that same panel, you have somebody who says, just listen to your body.
To yourself. Take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Self-care.
Self-care.
If you're tired, rest.
And pain is an indication
the
to
body
stop.
knows what it needs.
Exactly. So if you have that inconsistency, then you'll be confused and you will stop. You will not continue on. So which means even as you're formulating that panel, make sure that there's consistency of thought as well. Because if they contradict each other, that dissonance will probably force you to stop and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be doing it. There's a book called Immunity for Change. And the writers of this book were Harvard professors. They've been doing research in terms of what gets in the way of change when it comes to people. Why do people stop whenever they start something? And so they spent like 25 years doing this research, and they came to realize that every single person has this thing called the immunity for change. There is something inside of us that doesn't want to change, it's there to stop us from changing. And what I guess feeds or fuels this immunity for change is these hidden beliefs that we have. So, they did a bunch of experiments, and I think one person, the experiment that I remember, the book is out there, people can actually go and check out it on Amazon. It's called Immunity for Change. And they talk about this person it's a woman who was trying to lose weight. And she would do everything, but she would never reach that level of consistency. She'd always stop. And why? She doesn't know why. And after being part of this experiment, she came to realize that the hidden belief that she had was that skinny is unattractive. But she was forcing herself to lose weight because that's the image that's being pushed out there.
All right.
The hidden belief was fueling the immunity for change. So you don't know why it's hard for you to get to that next level.
Literally, you're working against yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. But you don't know that you're working against yourself because it's a hidden belief. And I think that's why, this whole idea of self-awareness and maybe even like intellectual awareness where you are very clear about what you believe and what you don't believe.
Clarity
is very important, because if you don't know, then your subconscious will always be working against you.
Exactly.
Where you say you want one thing, but there is this hidden belief that's working against whatever it is you want to get to. It's the same thing where, people who say, who believe that, let's say, my body is a temple. At the same time, you believe that you only live once. And I've heard people, I think here in Tanzania, people do that a lot. Utapata mwili mpya mbinguni, right? If that's your hidden belief, at the same time, you're like, I want to be fit. The hidden belief will probably win.
Absolutely. The subconscious wins all the time. I think it's funny you brought up this idea, because we're talking about consistency, right? The truth of the matter is everybody is consistent because we are creatures of habit. If you think about it, you're consistent with almost everything. You consistently eat the food you eat. You consistently go to bed usually at the same time. Your mental models are consistent. Your relationships are consistent. So in a way, it's a very easy topic to discuss, because you just need to be aware of what is my consistency? What am I consistent at? And do I like my consistency? That's why you need to be a little bit aware of, let's say you we've talked about, let's say, health and finances. Let's say you want to improve your relationships, for example. Just, you want to have better quality relationship, friends, for example. And I can guarantee you that there is a certain consistency about the way you approach people, because that's just the way we are. We are creatures of habits, and the more we do things, the more we like them the way we do them. So it's that awareness. Okay, now it is very clear that when I meet people, I don't invest enough time to help them out, and therefore I'm not getting the return. Or I'm just averse to social gatherings, and you want to change that, right? So in some ways, my point here is that we are already consistent. It's just that you need to bring your consistency to the fore, and if you want to change it, then you take steps to change them. But when it comes to judges and ideals, I think we were speaking the other day about who are the people we admire, right? And we were talking about, okay, so we are young guys, early 30s. The people I admire now are guys who are older, 60s, 70s, maybe late 50s, who are healthy, who are financially free, and they have great relationships. I'm like, yeah, dude, like, you're 65, you're super fit, you are financially free, and you have great relationships. You have a great family. You have good relationship with your kids or your friends. Those are the people I really admire. Now, you don't find a lot of them. So some of them are really good with their health. Some of them are really good with their finances. Some of them are really good with their families and relationships, which is great. So now, in this silo called health, there are a few people that I really appreciate, and I'm like, yeah, I would like to be like you in 30 years.
Those we can count, definitely.
And you have your Goggins is not old, but you have your Goggins, you have your Jocos, and those are the guys that are gonna push you. Get up, don't be a sissy,
motivation is
and food is fuel. It's not about what it tastes, right? Food is fuel. If you have a petrol, if you have a car that uses petrol, you don't put diesel because it's a weekend. You eat what you need to eat, right? And then you have people who are really good with their money, and I'm not talking about super wealthy people. I'm talking about people who are free. They can manage their own time. I'm tracking them and I'm thinking, these guys actually did some things consistently for 2-3 decades. Today They can just sit around and, they will be fine. And then I think the most complicated part is the relationships, because that's the most dynamic thing. And it involves other people, which means it's very complicated. It involves
other complex human beings.
Exactly. So, it's the emotional intelligence, it's their kindness, it's the longevity of the relationships that they have, it's the impact that they have in the community. So I kind of try and pick different models for each of these areas and try to see what they do. And it's also good to spend time with these guys, because you start to absorb, and this is something else about consistency. Sometimes we think that consistency is about willpower and character and grit and motivation. But a lot of it is just environment and company. You are who you're surrounded with.
Exactly.
Right?
You become who you're surrounded with.
So you're surrounded by great people, you become great. You're surrounded by great communicators, you learn to. It brushes off of you. And the environment itself, if you go shopping, you will shop and you will buy the things that are available. That's just the fact. So if you want to shop better, you find a different place to shop. So it's a combination of those things as mentors and coaches and ideals. Yeah.
There's a quote that I was looking for, when you spoke about, everybody is consistent, but the question is, you are consistent in what area of your life?
Yeah.
There's this quote by Nir Eyal, who wrote this book called, Indestructible, essentially talking about how to remain focused. And he said that the superpower for the 21st century is the ability to be indestructible, meaning nothing can distract you from what you want to do. And so in this book, there's this quote that says, the drive to relieve discomfort is the root cause of all of our behavior. So all of our behavior are a result of this need to relieve discomfort, right? You see a child, the child learns to crawl because they don't want to depend on the mother. They want to get to that thing on their own.
Yeah.
You learn, you grow. And I think even education, the reason education works is because we're told that, when you go to school and you do well, you'll be independent and you'll do your own thing.
Life will be easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this need we have to really make sure that we are as comfortable as we can be is what drives most of our behavior.
Yeah.
And so now you mentioned that we're all consistent, which is very true.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are, consistently inconsistent, but you are consistent.
Yeah.
And so, but I think when you have to do things that matter, fortunately or unfortunately for some people, it's never an easy journey.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, eating, one person called Bill Burr, and I'm not trying to fat shame anybody here, but he's a comedian who is ruthless.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy, man.
He's always fat shaming people.
Yeah.
And one time, people were always complaining. In one of his podcasts, he said, being fat is easy. You don't have to work. All you have to do is eat. That's all. Of course, there are people who are that way because of the genetic makeup and everything. But for most people, you just eat.
Yeah.
Right? So you are consistently eating, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But as soon as you have to be fit or healthy, you have to now watch what you eat, right? You have to be intentional. And so you have to move away from, it being something that is pleasurable to something that is just there for utility.
Yeah.
So I think being consistent in areas that will produce a successful life, whether it's your health, your career, your business, your relationships, you have to do things that are hard.
Yeah.
And so while we are wired to run away from things that are hard, to always make sure that, so what's the relationship you think between this tolerance for discomfort or tolerance for pain and the ability to become consistent? Because I've come to believe that it's hard to be consistent if you don't have tolerance for pain or if you don't have tolerance for discomfort.
Yeah.
And so what's the relationship? And if you think there is one, how do we build that tolerance? How do we get to, to a point where there's a saying, you become comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Or how do we learn to maybe not even tolerate, but enjoy pain?
Yeah.
Where pain is not really a sign to flee, that whole flight and fight, right? Where pain is, because for many of us, pain is an indication that I have to get out of here.
Yeah.
If you feel pain, I have to stop. I have to check out.
Yeah.
And so how do you
Yeah, I think in the words of Ben Owden, you've got to have a why. I'm just remembering that fantastic podcast you did with Michael
Maruti, yeah.
Listened to it a couple of times. Fantastic podcast. I think we should not underestimate the importance of a great why. Here's what I mean. The picture that you have must be so compelling that it just trivializes the pain that you have on this side, right? So anybody who has been told by a doctor that they have 6 months to live unless they start fixing their health and eating well, they change.
They'll get their act together.
If a doctor tells you, una miezi mitatu mzee, achana na hii mambo ya sukari, you stop.
Yeah.
Ndio maana kuna wazee wengi hawali chumvi, hawali nini, because the why is real. The shit got real.
Yeah. The opposite is death.
Exactly. The opposite is death. So I always tell friends, one of my dreams is to be able to play football with my grandchildren. And I don't have children yet. So I have a long way to go to achieve that dream. But it's so important to me, or from a health perspective, because every experience I will ever have will be better with better health. And everything I will ever experience will be worse if I'm not healthy. Right? So if you place that why on that side, then the level of discomfort here is trivial. Especially when you're aiming low, like we discussed. Right? So I think you've got to have a really compelling why. And also make the efforts that are required to make a change manageable, doable, and it's something you could do. That's one. And then number two is, I think, although we are wired to escape discomfort, I think we are also wired to feel really content and happy with progress. Think of the times where you were really happy or you were satisfied with yourself. Those are the times when you took something challenging, voluntarily faced it, and had some gains on yourself. You might not have achieved the goal, but at least you did an effort. And that is something that gives you satisfaction more than the high of just being happy. So I think it's that voluntary exposure to difficulty that builds you, that literally causes you to evolve to become a better person. And I think if you keep those two things, perhaps you will be able to tolerate the pain. And once you realize that, and this is something you pick up from David Goggins, it's like once you realize that, you realize actually who's in control here? Is it the mind or the body? Because if the mind is in control, the body will just follow. And once you realize that, then you start to see potential. You start to see the things you can do if you would just tolerate the discomfort. I'll go back to running. Running is a very, very strange exercise for humans because running always teaches you that no matter how tired you feel, you can run some more. You never, when you feel like my tank is empty, you can still go farther. And once you put your mind to that and your mind starts to behave and obey, then the body starts to fall and you see that the great transformations that you can have physically. And another thing that we hate to admit is this idea of a judge or a perfect person is a get out of jail card for many of us. Because it just gives you the opportunity to say, Ben is just a natural born communicator. Like dude was communicating when he was like 2 or 3, right? He was talking, he's a public speaker. It gives you a way out.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that your locus of control has to be internal. People typically get what they deserve. People typically look the way they deserve. I think Abraham Lincoln said this. There was a guy who was applying. I think he was applying for a job, and Abraham Lincoln said, "Look, I can't hire you. I don't like your face." And one of his assistants said, "There's nothing he can do about his face." And he says, "Look, if you're 30, you're responsible for the way you look." So yes, there are people who would have unique challenges, but the truth of the matter is you do get what you deserve. You do look the way you deserve. In your career, you are where you deserve most of the times.
There are exceptions, but most of the time, yeah.
But if you're really honest with yourself, like, okay, this is the level of effort I put, and this is where I deserve. And if you want to change the results, you change your consistency, and then things begin to change and evolve. Yeah.
And you've tapped there. I think this, how sometimes when you have a judge, you want to. I mean, sometimes when someone appears, rather, let me put it this way, when you come across certain individuals who represent what maybe you subconsciously know you are capable of attaining, then the reflex response is to look for reasons to justify why they are where they are, right?
Yeah.
Like the example you've used here. There are people, and that's why I think the world loves the Messis of the world.
Yeah.
Because we all believe that he is a natural-born footballer.
Yeah.
It's natural. You can see that this dude was born to play football.
Yeah.
But not so much Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Because clearly he is not as gifted as Messi, but he puts in the work.
Yeah.
And as a result of putting in the work, he is where he is.
Obsessed,
So we don't like Ronaldo because Ronaldo is proof that if I apply myself, I will probably get to where I want to get.
Exactly.
And so whenever we see that, and I think that cuts across the board, you see people, I think, and for a long time, I had that same habit where I would always be curious about someone's history and background because I wanted to justify why they are there and I am not.
Yeah.
And I would always say, it's because they come from that family. It's because they went to that school. It's because they got their degree here. It's because they know that person, right? Always finding ways to justify why people are where they are and you are not where you're supposed to be. And when I conditioned myself, it took time to get to a point where it doesn't matter, right? Where it doesn't matter what resources or what access they had to, whatever they had access to, I can do it. If I apply myself, I can do it, which is something that I also talked about, because I think even in the podcast with Michael, this whole idea of people. In fact, this 2 weeks ago, I was talking with my cousins, the young guys, like they're in college, and one guy I was talking to him, and he chose a different course, right? He doesn't like. He likes civil engineering. He's doing I think business and IT or something like that. And I was like, why did you choose this? He said, well, I had to look at the reality of life. Everybody I know, works in places. If I had this degree, I'm going to get a job.
Yeah.
And I said, but you do know that your network expands.
Yeah.
It's not something that is fixed. It's, it expands. It's fluid.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, man. If I was born in a different family, maybe. And he just went on a rant to explain why he made the right choice.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to him, and it was so hard to get across to him. And I realized that it's that state where looking at somebody who's made those bold decisions, it's like an indication that either you've made consistent bad choices, and we don't like that feeling. Again, to rid yourself of that pain and that discomfort, you're like, no.
Yeah.
They are there because their father, their mother, their uncle, their aunt, their genetic makeup is that way, right?
Yeah.
That's what we go to.
Exactly.
And so, but again, it's the same thing where we are judging, but we're doing it in reverse. Whereas we should use that as motivation to say, you know what, I want to get to that point. And so, how do I get to that point?
Yeah. I think in some ways, everyone you meet is a mirror into your world, and it's very easy to meet someone who's outperformed you in any field, and try to justify that. And the easiest thing to do is, I'm not like them. I genetically, I'm not like them. They're prettier, taller, richer, better family. And therefore that gives you comfort. It gives you, it maintains your self-esteem. It allows you to move with life. And a little bit of it is good, because you don't want to move around, live your life feeling demoralized all the time. If you're hanging around athletes and billionaires all the time, you just around Messi and Ronaldo and Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, I mean, at some point you've got to feel like, okay, what is wrong with me? Yeah. So it's good not to always measure yourself against the uber achievers, right? But I go back to the same point. Most times, nature is pretty neutral, and it gives you what you deserve. And the longer you live, the more your life is a result of your habits. Yeah, you can wing it, let's say in your 20s, maybe early 20s. Genetics can help you, and maybe connections, and maybe family can help you. Maybe even IQ can help you. But in your 40s, the results are starting to show that this is what you put in your life. In your 50s, certainly. In your 60s, we are now counting 4 or 5 decades of you. The results of you doing things.
Choosing certain things. Yeah.
But another thing we have to remember as we speak about consistency is that we say nature is neutral, but I like to. A friend of mine, Princely, we talk about this a lot, and nature tends towards decay. Unattended things die. That's just the way nature is. I tweeted the other day and I said, look, death comes on its own. If you want to live longer, you've got to do something about it. Weeds grow on their own. If you want to have plants, you've got to plant, water, weed them out. Relationships die on their own. Anybody who has experienced the end of a relationship knows that it doesn't take a lot of work for a relationship, whether romantic or platonic, to end. You should be surprised why they are why they are continuing, not why you're breaking up. So
basically, death or decay is automatic.
Yes,
whereas growth has to be intentional.
Exactly. Death and decay is the inevitable consequence of neglect. Left to its own devices, this place where we are sitting, if we don't do anything about it, dust will gather. It's gonna decay. It's a strange thing, but that's just the way life is.
So if you neglect, decay is inevitable.
Yes. So if you care about something, you should care about very few things in life, by the way, right? But if you care about something, you better be intentional about it. Because kudra za Mwenyezi Mungu hazipo. Like you've got to put in the work on a consistent basis to get the results that you want. Now you just have to choose what you're going to put the work in, and long periods of neglect causes long periods of painful maintenance. So the best way to do it is to actively maintain something. The best way to keep a house clean is not to clean it every other month. The best way to clean a house is to clean it every day or every other day, so that you don't have a mess. Same with relationship. The best way to keep a great relationship is not to go for therapy every 6 months. Is to have mini therapies every 2-3 days, because then the problems are small. They're not monstrous.
They're manageable.
The best way to keep a healthy body is to do something every day so that when you go for your checkup at the end of the year, you don't have blood pressure and cholesterol and your knees are messed up and your teeth are not in good shape. Then you have a monstrous problem. So in some ways, life is about active and constant maintenance. Because if you don't maintain,
which is back to the whole idea of consistency, where because consistency, it's those small everyday habits. Whereas I think many of us, like you're saying, we tend to neglect, and so once you see the severity of the decay, you suddenly panic. And you're like, oh my God, I have to do something, right? Like you wait, and then until there's Kitambi is right there, and you're like, oh God, I gotta do something, right? And and you sign up for a marathon or whatever, and unfortunately, again, once the pain becomes too much, then you say, I'll probably do it some other day. But I like this constant maintenance, and it's good. You probably shouldn't care about a lot of things because we're not wired in this finite life that we have to care about too many things. You probably should establish a few things that you care about and nurture those as well.
And it also this idea of constant maintenance is very profound because it allows you the margins you need to push yourself further. So it is like emails. Let's say you're at work and you put off on responding to emails, and then they pile up, and it's 500 emails, and then it's 1,000 emails. We do a lot of emails, if you ask me, anyway. If you're into that habit, you will always be catching up. If you don't maintain things, you're always catching up. You're always patching things up. You're always putting fires out. And the problem with putting fires out and always catching up is you don't have the space cognitively and time-wise to now think about how to improve. So you've got to run to just remain where you are. So this is another. Remember, we talked about don't aim high, aim low. This is another thing. It's not necessary to live life on the margins. Like just live life to the full. We have that concept as well. Like live life to the full. Play hard. Yeah, like everything should be maximized. Everything should be well. If everything is maximized, you don't have the margin required. So if your calendar is full from morning to evening, from 8 to 8. If something happens there that takes away 5 minutes, then the whole stack is messed
disrupted,
up. So maintenance allows you to have those little margins that give you room for creativity, for new relationships, new projects, new ideas. So again, it's we probably need to reformulate our ideas about how we live, because I think we just need to have some margins in our life so that we can make those improvements.
And I think, speaking of that, there's this concept of temptation bundling. Where it's something that David Goggins and Joko, they are against this whole concept. Where temptation bundling is essentially doing something hard, but finding something else to do that you enjoy. So the story that they always use is this guy, this developer, this tech guy who wanted to lose weight. And he had no motivation to do it. So what he did, but he loves watching Netflix. So he developed this program, and he, connected wires to his bike, the indoor bike, and then if he pedals, Netflix video plays. If he stops, it pauses. And so he would, because he loves watching these series and movies, he would just pedal because he wants to watch, right?
His rewards,
And so they're saying this whole idea of temptation bundling, where find something. Some people run and listen to music, and some people run and listen to a podcast, or they now you see this in a lot of gyms, those aerobic dances, right? People wanacheza kisingeli these days is like the thing, right? And you dance, but you're actually working out. Temptation bundling. So what are your thoughts around that? Because it does work for some people, but I am more of the school of thought of the David Goggins, where, in fact, these days I don't listen to anything when I run. I don't want to listen to anything. I don't want to associate. If there's pain, I want to experience that pain. I want to be okay with that pain. I don't want to always depend on something else that makes it tolerable. because it's not always going to be there. It's not, you will not always have those conditions, right? With any habit, so to speak, you want to do, so is temptation bundling something that maybe you should try out at the very beginning when it's so hard to do this, and then later on it becomes easier, or is it something that, I don't know, I can't say for everybody, because I guess maybe this is a personal choice. People have to choose on their own. Can't really.
I think it's personal. I'm probably leaning towards your thinking. There's a great quote that I have somewhere that says, "Be grateful for help when it comes, but be prepared to do it without help." And it applies to many things. The things that matter should be done irrespective of the conditions. And it's a muscle that you have to work at. So maybe in the beginning you need a distraction. You need an enticement to do something you need to do. I know people who, to improve their focus, they set 45 minutes of work and 5 minutes of social media. They allow themselves, okay, 5 minutes, I'm gonna have that. It's a reward at the end of the task, and that's good. But the great thing about consistency is that it's become so part of you that you don't need help doing it. It's harder not to do it than it is to do it. There are people who have achieved that level. There are people who, when it comes to reading, for example, they say, look, the same way you're saying, I don't have the time, like I don't have the time to read, the other guy is going to say, look, I don't know how I cannot read. Like, I have no idea how I am, but I just find myself that it is harder for me to not read than it is to read. So it's almost like you're reprogramming. The action itself becomes a reward. So and that's an identity thing, right? So you get from one stage where action results and you're following the results. You want to get the results, right? But then once you're consistent, your dopamine comes from the fact that doing it is what makes you happy. And if you don't do it, you're sadder.
It's that evolution you were talking about at the beginning, right?
You've now evolved to a level where actually doing this makes me happy. Like, I kind of like this pain,
Not doing is the painful part.
Exactly. Now, once you've gotten to that level with everything, by the way, in life, then you've become because you do it unconsciously. It's become so part of you that you don't even think about it. It's not. You don't do it when the conditions are right. You don't do it when you're feeling good. You don't do it when you're well. You just do it. And that's probably the best place to be.
And now these days, there's this whole idea of virtue signaling, right? People do that a lot, especially online, where somebody would post something to appear a certain way. I think we have many philosophers these days on social media, right?
Exactly.
People always posting all these thoughts on different matters. And so virtue signaling, I think, has somewhat become a source of motivation. This is my hypothesis. It's not tested or anything like that, but these are my thoughts. Where I feel like it's become a source of motivation for some people, where they read because they know they're going to post. Where they go for a run because they know that they have friends on Strava and people will see what they're doing and they will post something on their WhatsApp status or on LinkedIn or social media or whatever platform you're using. So some people do things because they know that they're going to signal that online somewhere.
Exactly.
And so whereas of course you can look at it the other way and say that it's not so much virtue signaling, but it's in a sense because they know that they will post, then they have to.
Exactly.
Right? So
it's a reward.
It's become that reward in a sense. So do you think in this social media era where people are sharing. I think with some people, you really know what's going on in their life. You know what they are doing with their finances because they're always posting, all the different things they believe about that.
Yeah.
Then there are people who are always posting the books that they read, I think. And there are platforms for that, right? Even on Goodreads, you can actually put on your wish list the books that you want to read, and then once you complete, then you can share that. So do you think virtue signaling is an effective way of actually seeking motivation? Knowing that I'm going to tell the world that I'm doing this thing. And so because there's a dopamine release that I'm going to get as a result of those likes and retweets and everything else, then I have to do it, right? Because I know I have to show up. Do you think virtue signaling is an effective way where, you have a crowd applauding you in a sense that, you know what, kudos to you for doing this? Is that an effective way? Because like that same crowd can also not care or tear you down in a sense. Do you think that's an effective way?
Actually, they don't. So I think I've actually thought about this, the impact that social media is having on our lives, on our real lives, and the nudges that these platforms give us. I think we care about what people think first. It's very important to remember we are social beings. I think we evolved to care. That I guess when we were living in the caves, we wanted to be liked, because when you're liked, then you're part of the group. Then when there's food, you get part of the food.
Belonging is essential.
Belonging is a critical element of who we are. We are incredibly social. So we care about the opinion of others. Even those people who say they don't care,
they care.
They do care. So we do care. I think what social media has done is it has given us the illusion that our lives matter to other people. The truth of the matter is our lives don't really matter to most people. Most people are thinking about themselves because they are also humans. And this illusion, if we internalize it very much, it can be quite destructive, because let's say you did a beautiful, you have a beautiful picture. You've taken 1,000 pictures. You've gotten one that you really like, and you edited it for 2 hours, and then you post it, and then you only get 1 like or 2 likes. And you're like, nobody likes me. I mean, nobody likes you in the first place that much. The people who care about you wouldn't mind.
Probably wouldn't care whether or not you posted something
exactly.
online.
So there is that challenge that we have, and in some ways we live like we're all celebrities while we're not. We just have a few friends, 1,000, maybe more, and their opinion should not matter that much, because you don't care about them either. You're living your life. But if it motivates you, and if it's able to motivate other people, maybe you should do it. It's just that it shouldn't be your real life, because you're flesh and blood. You live a life, and if it's this is how to think about it. I think if you're doing something because you're going to post it, then probably you need to rethink why you're doing it in the first place, if you really like it. But if you're doing something that you really enjoy, and then you want to share that experience with other people, perhaps it's a healthy relationship with social media. Now, another thing we have to remember is that life is long, and there are ups and downs, So it is very important to have in mind the fact that sometimes you're going to have highs and sometimes you're going to have lows. The problem with social media is that it's always highs. Nobody posts their sad stories on social media. Maybe a few people do, but most people would share something positive, a thought they had, and that's great, because we need motivation. We need people to feel like they are being encouraged, right? But if we treat that as real life, then we have a problem, right? So David Goggins says that, like, Yeah, I know you're posting quotes. I know you're posting things, but are you living it? If you were to, if in some ways social media can also be your judge, because we're all trying to create a certain personality. We're all trying to create a certain personality. Can you
sustain that?
What is the gap between your social media presence and avatar and your real life? Maybe that's a good challenge to have. Like, all right, Samuel, this is what you post on Twitter. How aligned is it with your real life? Can you be honest with yourself? And if I had that panel that we talked about and they were judging, and the metrics they were using would be the ones you're putting on social media, you know? Because in social media, everybody is a great person, loving, forgiving, and caring, you know? But are we like that in real life? And I think that's a challenge we need to have. And sometimes
I think we'll have to probably cut that clip and put it on Twitter so that we'll see people. Your Twitter avatars, a representation of who you are in real life. And I think it's this whole idea of integrity.
Yeah.
I think integrity is a key component to, or even a result. Integrity is a result of consistent.
Yeah.
Because integrity is that you will behave consistently regardless of the changing circumstances.
Yeah.
And so your social media presence, if it does not reflect your real life or your, the values you get behind it in real life, you don't have integrity.
Exactly.
Because you're presenting one thing, but you're living something else, which is actually for me. Now, I know this is just personally, I know that I have a fragile heart. So I also know this whole concept that the heart is deceitful above all else. The human heart is very deceitful.
Yeah.
And because I know that, I avoid virtue signaling at all cost. Because I think you spoke earlier that, you have to have a why. And I think, in my opinion, if your why is the approval of people who don't really care, that's a very weak why.
Exactly.
And so if you don't get the approval, or you get the feeling that you didn't get the approval, then you don't have a why in essence. So and that's why I like that whole idea you spoke about earlier, where you said you have to have these judges, right? This panel of people, right? People who they're not necessarily some social media personalities or anything like that, but there are individuals who've highly achieved what they have achieved, or ideas, maybe not necessarily people. It could be ideas, because for me, there are 3 ideas, in fact, that I have adapted, recently. One is this idea called arte. It's written arete, I think.
Okay.
It's a Greek idea where essentially there was a guy who was called Arte back in the day, in the Omar's days, when that poem was written, this is thousands of years before Christ. And he was an individual who was highly accomplished. He was like a perfect specimen. And so when Alexander the Great became, the ruler and the king and the emperor of Greece, he essentially passed a law that says this idea has to be taught in every school. Okay. That every Greek has to reach a state of arte. So arte, the English translation would be excellence.
Okay.
Where you are excellent in everything you do.
Yeah.
So it's considered a virtue in, Greek philosophy and, I guess the tradition generally.
Yeah.
And that's why, of course, that led to, a lot of the great things that we know the Greeks did in their time.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of arte, that I will operate with excellence. In Christianity, there's this idea that, everything you do it as if you're doing it to God, because he is all-knowing. So he's the ultimate judge. So which means you will have to rise above yourself to really do everything, right? So it's an idea that I get behind. So I'm always asking myself, is this the best that I can do? It could be better than what others are doing. Yeah. But is it the best I can do? So it could be excellent if you compare me to certain individuals. Yeah. But if you compare me to what I am capable of doing, it's not excellent, right? So that's one idea that I'm always, I guess, asking the arte. Like, am I living in a state of arte with everything that I'm doing? Yeah. And the other one is the carpe diem, which is seize the day. Yeah. And I'm asking myself, there are plenty of days that I don't seize. And at the end of the day, I'm like, did I actually seize today? Did I do everything I could have done on this day? Yeah. And then the third one is this, I guess Nietzsche Princely can correct us for butchering his name because Princely adores this guy. Right? He's the idea of amor fati, that I will love my fate, that it doesn't matter what happens. And so all these ideas are
They
ideas.
did committed suicide, I think, though. Anyways.
Yeah, but no, so not necessarily him, but his idea, right?
I agree. I agree.
So amor fati, I will love my fate. And the thing is, all these ideas or philosophies or whatever they are consistent with my Christian beliefs.
Yeah.
Like there's no contradiction, so I can get behind them. So there hasn't been at any point where I am like wondering like, okay, or there's this unconscious thing that's affecting my immunity where now I don't want to change because so I think so even in formulating or at least getting behind these ideas, I paid attention to the logical, to the intellectual and cognitive consistency, making sure that it does not contradict anything else that I believe. So as we are heading towards a close, speaking of those judges, those 4 judges that you mentioned, do you have a few of those, and who are they, if you could share with us, and how has the fact that you have these judges impacted your life, your growth, and your ability to stay consistent in the different areas of your life?
I'm gonna say something that is it's pretty cliche, but I'll tell you why. For me, it's my dad.
No, that's not cliche.
My dad. It is a cliche because everybody says, "Oh yeah, my parents, my
not
mom."
necessarily. I think if you're a Tanzanian, and you can honestly say that, that's always a great thing.
Yeah. So I'll tell you why. And by the way, the reason I loved your podcast with Michael so much is that you really drilled in on this idea of peace as a result of the congruency between the internal and the external. Because when we are talking about consistency, yes, consistency is doing the things you want to be doing on a daily, recurrent basis. But also there's another type of consistency, which is the consistency between the internal and the external. Or the lack of dissonance. And for me, my dad just exemplifies that. There is no vagueness about what he believes and how he acts. And as a result, he's the most peaceful dude ever. And it's been fantastic for him. It's been fantastic for his relationship with his wife, my mom. And it's just been fantastic for everyone who knows him, because everybody who knows him knows what kind of guy he is. It's almost like he's the kind of guy, like, whenever you come with an issue with him, you know the answer. Like, why are you going? You know me, I know you, you know what to expect from me.
Yeah.
And that's just, by the way, that's also an issue of consistency, because consistency creates an identity, right? So I really, really admire that, and I've had phases in my life where I just didn't have it. There are values that I have, or at least ideals that I have. A solid person, honest person, cares about people, Tanzanian values. But sometimes you're not living those values, and you're trying to fit in different groups that are not necessarily your type. And for sure that this is not you, but you're trying to fit in the clique or the club, or you want to get accepted.
Yeah.
And that's a tremendous source of dissonance. And dissonance creates all sorts of problems. You're not really happy. You're not content. There's no joy. But most importantly, there is no peace. So in terms of the ideals of consistency, in terms of values and how you act, I'm so fortunate that I have a father who has basically exemplified that throughout his entire life. And I think he's one of those men who are just going to die happy because they have just lived their lives the way they believe they live the best. So that's one. And for me, that's not a victory of anything material. It's a victory of moral fiber, moral rectitude, and that's pretty important. In terms of career, for example, I have a few. Maybe I won't name them now, but I have a few individuals that I look up to because they balance their lives really well. I think sometimes you start in the beginning and it's all about progress, and then everything else suffers. But I have worked for people who are pretty balanced human beings. They work, they deliver, they have great relationships, their families are in a good place, and they're still thriving. And those are the things that I really appreciate, especially people who are long-term thinkers. I was sitting down with somebody, a mentor, and he was going on and on about, I hope he doesn't mind this, he was going on and on about how he's into trading and investing in crypto and forex and all these things. And I don't really understand those things. I don't understand. I know the concepts. But I don't really so I don't invest in those things. But I told him something. I say, look, I want to invest in something that has a 10, 20 year horizon. Because for me, the best investors, the best financially prudent people, my panel, are not traders. They're not there to make a quick win. Like forex, may move like the dollar against the pound. That's not. I don't view like I wouldn't want to be staring at screens checking graphs. I care about 10, 20 years down the line. Where am I going to be? And there are people that I see that are such long-term thinkers, and I'm just thinking that's fantastic. There's a guy called Anthony Dedden, who is when it comes to wealth, he's my mentor. He's Swiss. I've never met him. I just check him out on YouTube and other platforms. And that's his philosophy. He's like, we don't care about most things in the world. We care about the long-term, multi-generational things. So he was talking about being in this farm where the olives, I think, if I'm not mistaken, were planted 40 years ago. And he was talking to this guy who was 33. And he said, look, we're now harvesting what my grandfather planted. So that's the kind of thinking I want. I want, a couple of decades down the line. And we have an epidemic of very short-term thinking in our modern world. Everybody wants to quick results, and I really admire people who are long-term thinkers because they're not stressed, they're not rushed, they have peace, they know what they're doing, and they just let their consistency do the work. And in terms of health, I've had different phases. I've had phases where I just wanted to get my weight right. Had phases where I just wanted to get fitter, some kind of CrossFit training. I've had phases where I want to, get a bit muscle. So it changes. It changes a lot. But the guy that really pushes me is probably Eliud Kipchoge, because he is such a mental runner. If you listen to him, he's almost like a philosopher when you see him in action.
Hear his thoughts, yeah.
Yeah, he's managed to let his mind control his body, and I'm not a marathon runner or anything. I love running, but he just inspires me. The limits he's pushed, the kind of life he's lived, the down-to-earth nature of his life. He lives somewhere, in Kenya. He runs with his guys. He has a farm. this is a guy who has transformed himself in such a way that he does not need to prove anything to anyone, because he's arrived. So I look at Eliud and I'm like, yeah, that's what an athlete. What a guy. And he's shattering records everywhere at his age. It's just beautiful. Beautiful to see. Yeah.
So part of being consistent is, I guess, this shift, the mental shift from being, I guess, outcome focused to process focused, because, consistency is essentially about the process. It's about the everyday life, right?
Yeah.
Leading up to your big ideal. And I think whenever you reach that level, you've spoken about this, where whenever you reach that level, then you set a new one, right? So once you attain something, you move that further down.
Yeah.
And so essentially, consistency is really about thriving in the process.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So it's a very, very fundamental thing to remember, I think, in the journey of life, that ultimate outcomes, comparatively speaking, last for a very short period of time. And sometimes, even when you achieve those goals, they may not give you the kind of satisfaction you hoped they would. If you think about anything we do in life, really, you go to school for 4 years and graduate, and your graduation lasts 2 hours. If you're in Tanzania, you're preparing for a wedding. You spend a year preparing for a wedding, and the ceremony itself is a couple of hours. The
ceremony, in fact, is like 30 minutes to an hour.
The marriage happens in church or mosque for 30 minutes. So you need to appreciate, and this is where consistency comes in. You need to appreciate that who you are becoming and the person you are forging along the way is perhaps more important than the things you're achieving in the end. In fact, let me just do this. You wrote a book.
Yes, I did.
In the process, the audience, this is not a plug. It's a book that is actually in the library. But the point is this. When I read this book, it just resonated with me so much in terms of the fact that there are many aspects to the process. So sometimes you might think that's what you want to achieve. But in the process, as you get consistent, you realize actually maybe the better ambitions are to do with character and development and the person you are and the kind of fortitude you create as a person as opposed to what you achieve. And maybe your goals may even change because you're being more and more consistent. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, in addition to the point that I'm making that everybody should buy this book, it's available
it's
on
available
Amazon.
Everywhere online. Yeah.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. Utapata, in the process, Ben Owden. It's a brilliant book. And I could feel that it was written at a stage where you understood the process.
Yes, I did.
You got, it's not theoretical. It was a process for you. Yeah. So
and in fact, just to say something.
Yeah.
There are times after the book was out where I reject the ideas. Not because they are not true, but because I know that they are true. But I know how painful it is. So there are times where I'm like, oh God. And, speaking of the ideal, the book has become an ideal for me as well. Yeah. Because now I know that this is how I'm supposed to walk through this stage of my life. I know this is how I'm supposed to build consistency. When I am not doing that, when I am complaining, I'm like, that it was going to be painful. Why are you complaining about this, right? So the book has become some sort of a judge for me as well, where am I living up to this
Yeah,
standard.
that's actually really interesting, because we were talking about judges and mentors and your panel of judges, and a book can, especially a book that you have written, it's
which
there,
is
you know?
this is also a value of actually, which is something that I know Princely does a lot, you know, with the Andika challenge, to challenge people to really put their ideas out there. Because when you do that, your ideas do become the judge. You've mentioned it with, you know, social media. Sometimes it can be a judge where, you know, are you what you publish?
Yeah.
And so this is also another way, another practice that people have. And so for me, that's why with the book, I reached a point where I say, even if I don't sell as many copies, I have received tremendous value from the content. And that's good enough. Not to say you shouldn't go and buy it, by the way. You should definitely go and check it out. You should. But you know, that's another way to actually do that.
And in another way, we can even flip it further and say, maybe the process of you writing the book is the most important thing. You know, it's like having gone through the process of writing. Of course, we have this book right now. It's beautiful cover. People have read it. I don't know how many copies have been sold, but perhaps I can imagine for you, the most impactful part is not selling the book, but writing the book.
And thankfully, I learned to enjoy. I got it. I got the message right early on. So I remember writing it, and I was enjoying every day, putting in, you know, 1,000 words, and then deleting them a few days down the line, and then doing it all over again. And the discipline, because this idea of discipline is transferable. You know, if you learn how to be disciplined in one area, you can transfer that into something else. And knowing that, okay, because I think I wrote the book mostly at night, so I had to be in bed at like 7 p.m. So I can wake up at midnight, because, you know, it's quiet, no one is hitting me up, nothing is happening, the whole world is quiet, all the way till, you know, like at dawn or something. So yes, I became a lot of the ideas that I was talking about while I was writing the book, and I'm still becoming to this day. I think, again, because the book talks about, I guess, the perfect way to go about it. So I'll probably never reach all the things that I talk about, but I'll strive to get, you know, as close as I can.
And would you say, I know you should be asking me questions, but would you say that, because I find this interesting, would you say that you talked about the idea of discipline being transferable? It's like life is unitary, and if you can improve one areas, you can transfer those bits of consistency in the other parts
areas.
Of life. Would you say that the discipline required, the focus, the consistency required to write a book has spilled over into other areas of your life?
Definitely. First of all, I am not afraid of big things, because I remember, you know, writing a book. Oh my God, you know, like over 55,000 words. Where do you even begin, right? And after having gone through that, now I don't have another book because I choose to, not because I can't. Because I know that, you know what, I don't necessarily have a message that would require the medium of a book. You know, we can do a podcast with it. You know, I can publish an article. I'm still, which is what we were talking about earlier, right, with Jordan Peterson, where he's not publishing every year. You know, when he has something, then he publishes. And I haven't found the thing yet to publish. So that's my reason for not doing it. At the same time, even when I'm running, when I listen to, in fact, David, and he says, you know, he's run 100 miles. It's not a scary idea to me. Because I know that to get to 55,000 words, I had to write 200 words. And a year in, I had over 60,000 words. So I know that if I am consistent with these small wins and small habits, I will eventually build up to, you know, 100 miles. So I'm not. So I think for me, I am not terrified of big ideas, and I'm not terrified to start small, because I didn't write 10,000 words in one day. You know, that took months. So the process of writing that, definitely the skill developed, I've moved that to everything else. Even with my marriage as well, you know, maybe I am not living up to a certain standard that my wife expects, or she would be happier if I operated in a certain way. And I know that fundamentally I am not that type of person. I'm also not terrified of that. I'm like, I will slowly become that person over the course of years. So I think for me, it's removed the fear of the big ideal, where I'm no longer terrified by it. But my question is, how do I break this down into small habits and small steps so I can eventually get there? Because I can look back and I have a reference that with the book, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I ultimately got to the end.
Exactly.
So now I've definitely been able to transfer that into other areas. And it's now become like, I guess, a mental model in my mind, or like a reference point that I constantly refer to, like, okay, yeah, I can definitely get there if I just, which is the importance of actually doing something and finishing. The importance of achievement is that you can look back and say, I did that, I can definitely do this.
Yeah. And I suppose that ties in. So there are two concepts that I think are connected. So I think one is, you say doing something and finishing it. I suppose for me, we talked about the importance of small goals, because with small goals on a daily basis, they are doable, they're finishable, and you can have your dopamine on that day. But the other thing is, I suppose, when you start, you don't start with the identity of an author. But as you go along the way, you're starting to forge an identity that I am an author. Like before, I suppose this is your first book.
Yes.
Right. So before that, you're like, I'm a good writer. I think I can communicate. But as you consistently build it, and you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I am an author. I am an author. I am an author. I am writing like an author. And therefore, your identity now changes, because now you can stand up and say, look, I've authored a book. It's finished. And I know how to do it. And therefore, like you're saying, the fear of big projects is no longer there, because you've done so much consistent work in the past to make yourself believe. Forget about other people, to make yourself believe that you can actually do this.
Which is why sometimes when people talk about failure, right? Where there's a podcast that I did with Owden Yakuza where we talk about failure and how to fail the right way.
Yeah.
And he mentioned, like how, in a sense, if you can program your life in a way where you never have to fail. You can make mistakes, but you don't necessarily have to fail, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because sometimes we tend to confuse mistakes and failure. And at the same time, if who you become is the important thing to you, even if you don't get the results you had intended to begin with, this identity that you developed along the way is the win. Which is why, in fact, even in Silicon Valley, founders who started a company that didn't work out, that is a badge of honor. And if you go to an investor and you have that with you, they're more likely to invest with you than somebody who has never done anything. Because I know you've become something through this experience and through this journey. And you can take that into this next company and hopefully get better results here. So I think, becoming is essentially very important, and consistency does breed becoming, because, when you are consistent with something, you become, whether or not the results. It's like running. If you started off running because you wanted to lose weight and you ran consistently for 3 years and you didn't lose the weight, but you developed discipline.
You're a runner.
You're a runner now, right? Whether or not you lost the weight. And now you can take that and bring that into your finances. Where, okay, now how can I be consistent in, saving and building wealth and investing and things like that? You can take that into your own career development. So I think even if the results aren't what you had hoped for,
and they rarely are, right?
And the person you become along the way is what's important. And you can't become if you're not consistent. You have to consistently do something to become it, whether it's good or bad. Hui mlevi kwa sababu umekunywa siku moja. Unakuwa mlevi kwa sababu tumekuona
ndio tabia
yako kwa muda mrefu sana, ndio tumekuona huyu ni mlevi. Kwa hiyo, whether it's good or bad, becoming is essentially all about consistency. And I think even if you don't get the results, the win is who you've become, and you can take that into every other aspect of your life.
Fantastic stuff, man. So, in the process, get the book. It's a great one. I can vouch for that, and I'm confident you'll love and enjoy it.
I think it's a very important concept, and therefore, it's a shock if things continue to live.
Not the other way
not if
around.
they die. Death is natural. Everybody's going to die. The longer you live, it's just a type of lifestyle. So I think that's one. Things die on their own. So the things you really care about, you've got to pay attention. Intentionality is key. And then two, if you want to make a change, aim really low. Really low, but make it consistent. Even if it's 0.5% better in a year, it's literally going to transform you. And the goal should not be a certain specific metric. The goal is to be the kind of person who does the things you want to be, who does the things you want to be doing. I suppose the last thought is also to thank you for the work that you do. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you are one of the best communicators I know, without a doubt. And I'm not saying that because you're just a friend. I'm saying that because if I need a speaker, I probably would call you. And thanks for being a friend. You and your wife Tina have been a friend to me, and we've shared some interesting experiences, highs, lows. So I'm proud to call you friend. But more importantly for this podcast, I really am glad that a person like you is in our space, in Tanzania, in this region. Because we don't have this kind of content in our market, and I'm really excited about why lead and this podcast and what you're gonna achieve for yourself and for your company. So I know you're a consistent guy, so I'm sure the results will be amazing a few years down the line. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. And I think. Yeah, thank you for the thoughts. I mean, there are plenty of things that you've shared. I think, the crew will have a lot of fun trying to chop and cut all these, different snippets and, sound bites to just throw them for social media consumption. But I think you've spoken a lot. And I think which is why I like having these conversations with you, it's because it's not... Because sometimes people want the shortcut.
Yeah.
They want the how-tos.
Yeah.
This is the 7 steps to take if you want to become consistent, right?
Yeah.
And it's never that easy. You see that to build any habits, the majority of the work is internal.
Yeah.
It's asking yourself those questions, is thinking a lot, is finding clarity internally.
Yeah.
And I think, and I hope that this conversation that we've had will have that effect on people, where, there are no shortcuts. I think that's very clear in everything that you said. There are no shortcuts. I think, is it Nadia who said, the shortcut is doing the work.
Yeah.
And so I liked how, we really got behind the mind of people who are consistent, the minds, and how do they operate? What do they believe in?
Yeah.
How do they think? And I think if people really take the time to listen to everything that you've shared and we've talked about here, they will certainly slowly start, get on the path. And if they are on that path, they will just be encouraged to continue on.
Yeah.
So I liked how you kept it all the way authentic. There are no shortcuts. It's not easy. And you shared enough to get people going and get people started on their journey. So to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. I hope this was valuable to you. This has been the Why Lead Others podcast, and I am your host, Ben Owden. And until the next time, you have a productive day.